Well. I've been saying for a while now that we can generally expect a new Mega Man Legacy collection about every 2 or 3 years. That was the gap between X to 0ZX, and then to Battle Network, that was another 2 years. And now, a little over 2 years after the Battle Network Legacy collection dropped, we finally got Star Force Legacy Collection, baby. Let's go! Hey, that means we only got one major collection to go after this one. You don't gotta guess any longer, it's just a matter of time. But let's focus on the present for a moment. So, general information first. This is the Mega Man Star Force Legacy Collection, also known as the Ryusei no Rockman Perfect Collection over in Japan. I don't know why they called it perfect, considering it's probably not going to have Star Force 1 DX, but I digress. But what it does have for sure is Mega Man Star Force 1, Leo, Pegasus and Dragon, Mega Man Star Force 2, Zerker and Saurian, and Zerker and Ninja, and finally Mega Man Star Force 3, Black Ace and Red Joker. No Operation Shooting Star here, which is unfortunate but entirely expected. After all, Capcom just does not like putting side games into these collections at all. But other than that, there should be a pretty cool collection, especially because online has already been confirmed to be a thing in this collection, just like with Battle Network Legacy Collection before it. That means we can actually 100% Star Force 3 once again, since there's a few things there for 100% that was actually locked behind the online component. The bad news of online is that once again, just like with BNLC, there is no crossplay between the platforms. Those platforms being Nintendo Switch, notably not Switch 2, just Switch 1 this time, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, and Steam. The problem with there being no crossplay is now we're going to have at least 4 different online realms to deal with. So if I have the Switch version and you're playing on PlayStation, well, we can't play with each other. And that was the big problem that we ran into at BNLC. Never mind the fact that the online connection itself was pretty spotty, but it was just most people couldn't play with each other unless they had the same platform. So pretty much even from day one of the Battle Network Legacy Collection, the online was mostly crickets. It was harder than it should have been to find people to play with, unless you actually schedule a play session with somebody. And unfortunately, that may end up also being the case with Star Force Legacy Collection, not only because of no crossplay, but by the way, this was announced in a Nintendo Direct, but only in Japan, not the US Direct that most of us here in the States would have been watching at the time. Literally, we weren't even halfway through to the US Direct before our live stream chat started alerting us to the fact that Capcom just randomly dropped the Star Force Legacy Collection trailer, which we later found out that's because it was shown off at the Japanese Direct, but not anywhere else, which is a very bizarre choice. Apparently, the Star Force segment got replaced with Mortal Kombat here in the US, so that kind of tells us that Nintendo at least thinks that Mortal Kombat would have been more appealing to the West than Mega Man Star Force. Unfortunately, they're absolutely correct, but God, I do not like the implications of this choice. I think, at the very least, you should have put it in the sizzle reel. Now you're going to have a whole section of the world, at least besides Japan, that's not even going to know that this collection exists. And I know that Star Force is kind of niche, even compared to Battle Network, but come on, if you want this thing to sell, you need to get the word out there. You need more people to get their eyes on this. So, I 100% do not agree with Nintendo's decision to not include Star Force Legacy Collection in their US Direct, or any of the other ones. But I digress, let's get back to the actual collection. And we'll get back to talking about online in just a little bit, but let's just go through the trailer that was shown in the Japanese Direct and talk about my findings in order. The trailer starts out with the EM Wave Change transformation sequence in Mega Man Star Force 1. But people who have played the game before may know something different right off the bat. And that is, we got a new voice clip from Geo that's never been heard before. And that appears to happen right after the player presses the R button or whatever it's going to be to E and wave change. Is this a new feature for the collection? Was it just some spice added to the trailer specifically? Are they going to bring back the English dub actors from Star Force 3 to do some lines? It's hard to say right now. But hey, I won't say no to some additional voice lines in these games. We don't even know what the main menu is going to look like. We know BNLC had the PET menu with megaman.exe himself doing the hosting. Maybe we could have a similar thing with a Transer menu with omega-xis doing the hosting. That would be neat. But anyway, back to the trailer. We are then treated to the transformation sequence itself, and as you can see, it is using high-res HD art now. Nice! Looks really good. Now let's fast forward a bit until we get to our first gameplay screenshot here. And right off the bat, yes, that ugly filter from the previous Legacy collections is back, but you should be able to turn that off, so no big deal. More interestingly is the screen layout here. So as we know, Mega Man Star Force was a DS game, so you gotta figure out some way to display both of the screens. Thankfully, at least in the Overworld, the second screen was mostly just for additional information like your profile. So that's probably why here they chose to make the profile screen so tiny that you can barely see it in the corner there. It's actually hilarious how tiny it is. But I suppose this was done so that the main screen can be centered, unlike in Mega Man 0ZX Legacy Collection when the main screen was off to the side, so you can still see most of the bottom screen for certain functions. But over in Star Force, you don't use the second screen for much, other than for some touchscreen minigames and things like that, which we don't know how they're going to handle the touchscreen minigames just yet, maybe in the future. But considering this is the period on consoles that don't have a touchscreen, I would assume there should be some accommodations made for traditional controls. Although a Switch 2 edition with mouse controls would have been nice, but doesn't look like that's happening. Anyway, about the DS layout, the only thing I don't like so far is this black border that's around the main screen. Maybe it was done to add some depth between the main screen and the background, which is like kind of like a space Earth type of thing, which I kind of like. But overall, yeah, I don't know, it just looks a little janky. Maybe this is just development footage and it'll get better later on. I'm going to fast forward again until we get to this scene in Star Force 1 with Geo talking to omega-xis. And for anyone wondering if they're going to fix the Star Force 1 line spacing, because it's really weird in the original, honestly, I compared this to the original Japanese version and the line spacing looks completely the same to me. So it doesn't look different in that regard at all. I guess the true verdict would be how the English version looks, but I don't know, ain't looking too good for people hoping the line spacing will be fixed. However, there is a new font, which you can see pretty much everywhere throughout this footage, and this is something BNLC did as well. They just replaced everything with some high-res fonts, which can be seen as a good or bad thing, because we're getting into battles right after this, and I will say the font for the numbers is kind of weird looking, but whatever. Other than that, the battles look very nice and crisp here. You can tell that all of the 3D models, and even the HP indicator and custom bar has been upscaled to HD. It's very glorious to see. What's more, when we switch over to the battle card menu, we even have high-res card art in battle. That is insane. That is a game changer. A feature that I would have liked to see in Bound Network Legacy Collection back in the day, but they only did it for trading in the end, which kind of wasted their potential in my eyes. But over here in Star Force Land, we get to see the high-res art all the time, baby. That's amazing. The other thing to talk about when you're in battle is the layout of the DS screens. I think this is very cool. So depending on whether you're actively battling a enemy or you are in your card selection picking out your loadout, the screen will dynamically change between the two screens depending on what you're doing. So already, this is more comfortable than playing this on emulation, just because the screens will resize so you can see more of what you're doing at any given time. It honestly reminds me a lot of what us YouTubers would do for our Star Force videos back in the day, but now we're seeing it happen in real time without having to edit in a video editor. That is sick. So far in the trailer, for battles we see both a horizontal layout as well as a vertical layout for people who prefer the original DS layout. And again, I think the black outline around the screens is still kind of awkward, but I do love the dynamically changing screen sizes. That is awesome. Okay, so this is where we get into some real juicy stuff. We get our first look at the online menu for Star Force Legacy Collection. This is what the original Japanese text looks like, but I'm going to go ahead and overlay this with a Google translated version of this image just to make things easier to digest. And don't take these translations as gospel because again, it's Google Translate, what can you do? But it should at least give us a general idea of what to expect. On the top left corner where the green icon is with the two Mega Men fighting each other, we have some debate over what this actually is. Google Translate will show like match now or something like that, but what we think this is a quick match mode, just if you want to hop into a PvP match right away. It would be neat if they had a mode that gives you a random loadout in a pre-selected folder, so you can just get into the game right away. You know, you don't have to do any setup on your end to get right up started playing, which is a feature again that I wish BNLC had, because megaman.exe did have a random battle mode that gave you a pre-selected Navi custom folder just so you can get started playing from the word go. But unfortunately that feature did not make the cut for the collection, so hopefully they could do something similar for Star Force Legacy Collection. Meanwhile, the yellow icon with the Star Force 2 key art is casual match. Meanwhile, the red icon on the right side with the profile ID card, more on that later, this is ranked match. So yep, we already got it confirmed from day one that Star Force Legacy Collection is going to have ranked battles. And now let's talk about the three options beneath the ranked matches. The first one is folder editing. Next to that is brother lists, it's called. I guess you can view what your brother bands are. And the last icon is for trading. And then there's a few button prompts that we can take a look at. We see that the Y button is for selecting your connection area. Right now it seems to be set to worldwide, but maybe you can switch it to regional and so on, just like in the BNLC. Pressing down the R stick will bring up a rank table, so I guess leaderboards or something along those lines, or maybe even your own rank. And then the X button should allow you to customize your own profile card. And then the last thing to mention here is the BP at the top right. I'm assuming this means that you're going to earn battle points by doing matches, and maybe those battle points can be exchanged for something, perhaps in game, like back in BNLC when you got crossover points for Battle Networks 5 and 6. And maybe that plays into some of the Lunar Knights content in Star Force 1, for example, which that's a big question mark right now if that content that was exclusive to Japan is going to return. But I'll go ahead and make this prediction right now. Since BNLC was based on the Japanese version of the Battle Network games, I would guess the same would apply to Star Force as well. They're just going to use the Japanese versions as a base, so all the content that was there should come over to the West as well for the first time. But that's not officially confirmed, that's just my own speculation. I'm sure we'll find out before the game is out in 2026 anyway. Alright, in the next screen, we have what I would presume to be the kind of versus screen that shows up when you start a match with somebody. And real quick, let's talk about profile cards. So the profile picture will feature your mugshot, which right now I've only seen Geo, Sonya, and Luna as possible options for your mugshot. There doesn't seem to be any confirmation if you can bring in your custom mugshots that you would create yourself in the game over to online. I know there might be some concerns there with, you know, people drawing very naughty things and showing them online, so maybe custom mugshots will be banned for online, I don't know. Well, so far we're just seeing generic mugshots that already exist. Anyway, on your profile card, you're also going to find the player's code name. So, your username. You'll have your win count. And next to that, you'll have emblems showing your rank for each of the games. For example, this player is a S rank player in Star Force 1 with 3 stars. In Star Force 3, they have an M rank with 2 stars, and so on. It's pretty cute that all the icons are represented by Mr. Hertz. We love Mr. Hertz. Another thing on our profile cards is going to be some banner image, which seems to be artwork from the gallery. So far we've seen variants showing Sonya, Luna, but then also Sonya and Luna together. And this is actually artwork from existing merchandise out there, so yeah, my theory is that you're going to be able to select an image from the gallery to use as your profile banner. And now talking about the versus screen as a whole, we see at the bottom left that this is match 2, maybe a best out of 3 matches going on. But here's the more interesting part that really raises an eyebrow. So either beneath or above the player cards, on the left we have a player that shows Mega Man Star Force 1 or Ruse no Rockman 1 beneath them, but the other player is showing Shooting Star Rockman 3, Mega Man Star Force 3. And it's like, wait a minute, are you telling us that this is Star Force 1 versus Star Force 3? How does that work? Well, I doubt that we're going to be combining games and having PvP against each other, although that would be completely wild and unbalanced. I think what's actually going on here is maybe you would select what your favorite game in the series is, and that is the background that would display behind you when a versus match starts. So basically you're repping your favorite game. At least to me, that's the most reasonable explanation, other than the insanity it would be to combine game PvPs. Imagine if that was the big new feature to Star Force. Another possibility is perhaps you would select which game you want to play at the start, and then when you versus somebody, it would select which game you're going to be playing from a roulette depending on what you pick. But at this point, I'm just spitballing, so let's move on to some other information. Next, we get a look at the music player, which is pretty much self-explanatory. You get to select from the soundtracks from all 3 games. I know it's technically 7, but it's 3 games at the end of the day. You can select your favorite songs. You'll most likely be able to do shuffling and all that good music player stuff. It does look pretty snazzy though, I'll give it that. Next up is the gallery, which as always will have some key art as well as concept art and most likely a bunch of stuff that was already in the complete works. But hopefully there'll be some new stuff in there as well, especially stuff from merchandise that's come out in more recent years. And of course the Star Force Legacy Collection key art, which looks freaking phenomenal. I absolutely love it. That's probably going to be my PC wallpaper from now on. And our next screen here, we're almost getting towards the end, we have what I presume to be the brother list that was mentioned in the main online menu earlier. In fact, if we Google translate this, it does indeed say brother list. And we see that it's showing 6 out of 100 brothers. I don't know if they significantly increased the amount of brothers you can have. Imagine all that link power you're going to get off of that. Holy cow. But what I was thinking when I first saw this is maybe this is a list of people that you fought previously in online matches. So then you could just view them here in this list and maybe hopefully add them as a brother if they accept. That would be a neat feature at least. But we can see here on the right hand part of the screen, we got their profile card. And then some info at the bottom, which shows the day of communication, which apparently for a lot of these, it happened in the year 2126. Wow, I can't believe people are still playing Star Force 100 years in the future. That's incredible. We also get to see their HP stats, how long they played the game, as well as their standard, mega, and giga library completion. And of course their level, that's always important. On the list itself, it even tells you what version of the game they're playing. So overall, pretty neat. And well, that about wraps up everything I was able to find in the initial footage and screenshots from the Mega Man Star Force Legacy Collection, which is dropping in 2026. Hopefully not the end of 2026, hopefully a bit earlier than that. but we'll see. We don't actually know yet. And there is some really big question marks still regarding this collection, such as, will Lunar Knights return in Star Force 1? Will there be Japanese exclusive content like the Noise Kaizo gear in Star Force 3? How will wave command cards be handled in games like Star Force 2? And so many other things, you know, will they actually make improvements to Star Force 1? Are they going to de-exify it? Most likely not, but a man can dream. At least since the collection is coming to Steam, you might be able to mod in the patch anyways, but that's all questions for the future. Overall, as an official package, the Star Force collection is shaping up to be pretty neat. I think for 2 and 3 at least, it'll be the definitive way to play these games, especially now that online is back. We can access brother bands again. We can actually at 100% complete Star Force 3 as intended. The big question is really just how Star Force 1 will be handled, but I'll just go ahead and guess that if you want the definitive Star Force 1 experience, you're better off playing the DX mod. Well guys, looks like Mega News is back in full throttle now that we actually have a game to talk about again. Go figure. And it shouldn't be too long before we get to hear a little bit more about this collection, because Mega Man Star Force Legacy Collection is going to be making an appearance at Tokyo Game Show with a playable demo and everything, so there should definitely be a lot more footage coming out in the coming days. Of course, as always, thank you all so much for watching, and keep it locked on ShadowRockZX for more on this collection and all things Mega Man in general. Until the next one, folks, rock on and have yourselves a wonderful time zone.